My world exists in 120 beat per minute intervals. I'm a professional drummer. Or at least I was. Now I'm a session guy, which is a nice way of saying I'm a for-hire metronome. My life is a series of soundproof booths in Burbank, laying down a perfectly clean, perfectly soulless drum track for a pop star who will never even know my name. It's a grind. It pays the bills, but my rhythm, my soul, was getting buried under a mountain of digital clicks and sterile studio requests. My agent, bless her heart, must have heard the desperation in my voice. "You're taking a break," she'd ordered. "I'm sending you somewhere. No drums, no studios, no producers." Somewhere turned out to be her brother's place. A vineyard. In the middle of nowhere, Northern California. "He needs help, you need quiet," she'd said. "It's perfect." That's how I, a guy whose hands were only good for holding a pair of 5A drumsticks, ended up in a dusty, sun-scorched vineyard, staring at a man who looked like he'd been carved out of the same oak as his wine barrels. His name was David. He was my agent's older brother, and he looked nothing like her. Where she was all sharp angles and LA energy, he was all earth and quiet. He was in his late 30s, with a permanent farmer's tan, a scruffy beard, and the most exhausted, resigned eyes I'd ever seen. His vineyard, I learned quickly, was failing. His father had left it to him, and a combination of bad weather, bad luck, and a changing market had been slowly strangling it to death. He looked at me with my soft city hands and my ironic band t-shirt, like I was just one more problem he didn't have time for. "My sister said you were a musician," he said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. He didn't shake my hand. "Drummer," I said. "Right." He pointed to a massive, tangled pile of wire and old, splintered wooden stakes. "Well, out here, the only thing we hit is the ground. That's the old trellis system. It needs to be cleared before we can even think about replanting. Get to it." That was it. My vacation had begun. The work was brutal. It was just me, a pair of thick leather gloves that felt like bricks on my hands, and that mountain of wire. My job was to untangle it, clip it, and haul the old stakes to a burn pile. It was mindless, repetitive, physical labor. My hands, used to the precise, fast-twitch muscles of a drum roll, were a mess of blisters and cuts by the end of the first day. My timing was off. My rhythm was gone. I was just a clumsy sore liability. David would work on the other side of the field, driving his ancient, coughing tractor, trying to fix a broken irrigation line. He never talked to me. He'd just leave a sandwich and a bottle of water on the porch for me at lunch. We were two men living in the same house, working the same land, in two completely separate, silent worlds. I hated it. I hated the silence, the dirt, the feeling of being so completely out of my element. At night, I'd sit on the porch of my little guest cabin, my hands throbbing, and I'd just tap. I couldn't help it. I'd tap on my knees, on the wooden railing, on my empty water bottle. Paradiddles, flams, triplet rolls. I was trying to find my rhythm in a place that had none. One night, about a week in, I was sitting on the porch, my hands aching, just tapping out a frustrated, complex beat on my knees. I was lost in it. When I finished, a voice came out of the darkness. "That's a lot of notes." I just about jumped out of my skin. David was standing 20 feet away, a shadow in the dusk, holding a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "Sorry," he said. "Didn't mean to sneak up on you. You've been doing that every night." "You've been watching me?" I said, feeling weirdly exposed. "Not watching. Listening." He walked over and sat on the other end of the porch steps, keeping his distance. He poured 2 glasses of deep red wine. "My dad used to say this place had a rhythm. The seasons. The way the vines grow. I haven't been able to hear it in a long time. But you seem to be looking for it." He slid a glass over to me. I took it. The wine was incredible. It was rich and dark, and it tasted like the dirt I'd been digging in all day. "This is amazing," I said. "It's the last of the '09, he said, staring into his glass. "The last good year. Before my dad got sick. Before everything." And for the first time, he talked. He told me about the vineyard, about how it was his family's legacy, and how he was failing it. He was a farmer, but the rhythm of the weather, the market, the land, it was all off. He was out of sync, and he was losing. I'm just hitting all the wrong notes, man," he said, and the metaphor, coming from him, was so perfect it almost hurt. "I get that," I said quietly. "I know what that feels like." We just sat there, drinking in the dark, 2 men who were completely out of time with their own lives. That night was the turning point. The work was still brutal, but it wasn't silent anymore. We'd worked together. He taught me how to prune the few healthy vines he was trying to save. His hands, I noticed, were like a surgeon's. He'd feel a cane, find the exact right spot, and make a clean, decisive cut. You have to feel the energy of the plant, he said, guiding my own clumsy hand. Where does it want to go? You're not just cutting it back. You're telling it where to focus. You're setting the tempo for next season. I started to get it. This wasn't just manual labor. This was a craft. It was a rhythm. I started to pay attention. I'd work on the trellis pile, and I'd find a groove. Clip, pull, stack. Clip, pull, stack. It was a beat. A slow, steady for fourths groove. I started to feel good. My hands were still a wreck, but they felt strong. They felt useful. The project I'd been avoiding was the old barn. The roof had a massive hole in it from a winter storm. It was where David kept his grandfather's old tools, his father's old workbench, a lifetime of memories, and it was all getting rained on. It was a huge, overwhelming, expensive fix. I can't even look at it, he'd confessed. It's too much. One morning, he was off in town trying to beg the bank for more time. I finished the trellis pile, and I looked at the barn. I was a musician. I knew nothing about construction, but I knew how to break a big, complex problem down into smaller, manageable beats. I went in. I started simple. I just started cleaning. I hauled out the ruined, moldy bags of feed. I swept. I organized the tools, hanging them on the wall in a way that just made sense. I created order from the chaos. When David got back, he was in a dark mood. The bank had been brutal. He walked into the barn, clearly expecting to find me, and just stopped. He just stood in the doorway, staring. The floor was clear. The tools were hung. The junk was piled neatly for disposal. What did you do?" he whispered. "I just gave you a clean slate," I said, shrugging, feeling suddenly shy. "It's easier to see the problem when you clear out the noise, right?" He walked over to his father's workbench, which I had cleared off and wiped down. He ran a hand over the scarred wood. He looked at me, and his eyes, for the first time, weren't tired. They were clear. "No one's ever done something like this for me," he said. "It was just cleaning," I said. "No," he said, his voice rough. "It wasn't. You found the beat again." That night, a new storm rolled in. A real, pounding early winter gusher. We were sitting in his kitchen, listening to the rain lash against the windows. "The roof," he said, his voice tight. "In the barn. That new clearing. It's all going to be ruined again." "No, it's not," I said. I stood up. "Where are the tarps?" We ran out into the driving rain, into the dark barn. The hole in the roof was a waterfall. We were soaked in seconds. We fought with a massive, heavy-duty tarp, the wind ripping it from our hands. "It's no good," he yelled over the roar of the storm. "It's too big for two people. We just need a rhythm." I yelled back. "We're out of sync. On my count. Ready? 1, 2, 3, pull." We pulled together. 1, 2, 3, pull. We moved like a single organism. We got the tarp over the hole. We found bricks. We found rope. We tied it down. We were a two-man percussion section, creating a frantic, desperate rhythm against the chaos of the storm. We finally finished. We stood there in the dark, soaking wet, breathing hard, the rain now drumming on the tarp above us instead of the floor. We had done it. "Holy shit," he breathed, a wild, exhausted laugh bubbling out of his chest. "Holy shit," I agreed, grinning from ear to ear. I was covered in mud, soaking wet, and I had never felt better in my life. We walked back to the house, stripping off our soaking wet gear on the porch. We were both shivering, our teeth chattering. "I'm gonna light a fire," he said. "You go get in the shower, before you get hypothermia." The hot shower was a miracle. When I came out, wrapped in a towel, my clothes in a wet pile on the floor, he was in the living room, in front of a roaring fire. He was in a clean pair of sweatpants, his hair still wet. He had left a set of clothes for me on a chair, a soft, worn t-shirt and a pair of flannel pajama pants that were way too big. "Thanks," I said, my voice quiet. "Yeah," he said, not looking up from the fire. "It's the least I could do." I went into the bathroom to change. When I came back out, he was holding 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed one to me. We both sat on the floor, on the old braided rug, in front of the fireplace, our backs against the couch. We were just 2 guys in baggy clothes, drinking whiskey and listening to the storm. "My hands," I said, looking at them in the firelight. They were a mess. Cut, blistered, the knuckles raw from the rope. "They're ruined." "No, they're not," he said, his voice a low rumble. He put his glass down. "Gimme." "What?" "Gimme your hands." I hesitantly held them out. He took them in his. His hands were rough, calloused, and unbelievably warm. He just held them, He looked at the blisters, the cuts. "These are good hands," he said, his voice rough. "They're not ruined. They're just different. They're stronger." He didn't let go. He just sat there in the firelight, holding my hands in his. He wasn't trying to fix them. He wasn't trying to do anything. He was just holding them, acknowledging them. I looked at our hands. My beat-up musician's hands and his calloused farmer's hands. And they just fit. I looked up at his face, at his kind, tired eyes, and I knew my life wasn't going back to the way it was. My rhythm wasn't gone. It had just changed. It was slower now. Sure. It was the rhythm of the earth, of the seasons. It was his rhythm. I leaned in, and he met me. The kiss was as quiet and as sure as he was. It tasted of whiskey and wood smoke, and it felt, in a way I couldn't explain, like I was finally perfectly on beat.